You're watching TimesXP. My name is Driti Atri, and here are the biggest stories that are making headlines across the globe today. So, let's start with it. United States seizes Venezuelan tanker. A Venezuelan oil tanker bound for China, it was stopped by the US military, sparking outrage in Caracas and escalating tensions at the sea. Now, this particular move, it signals a more aggressive US stance on enforcing sanctions, but here analysts warn that it could actually escalate into broader regional confrontation. Iran sides with Venezuela. That's right. Iran's foreign minister called Venezuela's top diplomat to condemn US actions, blaming them illegal and accusing Washington of piracy. Here, Tehran's intervention, it highlights growing Iran's influence in Latin American politics. Well, the message to the US, it was crystal clear. Caracas has powerful allies. Maduro gains diplomatic boost here. With Iran's backing, Nicolas Maduro signals that he is not isolated now, sending a clear message to the US that Caracas has allies ready to defend it. Now, this helps Maduro strengthen his domestic political position here. In fact, it also complicates Washington's sanctions strategy. Strategic Iran-Venezuela alliance here. Iran and Venezuela, they have long cooperated in energy and sanction survival strategies, and recent events, they show that their alliance is growing louder. Well, both the countries share a history of resisting the US economic pressure. In fact, their partnership now extends into military signaling and political support. Washington versus Tehran in Latin America. Well, the US sees Venezuela as a regional issue, while Iran frames the conflict as global resistance, deepening geopolitical rivalry in Latin waters. This sets the stage for any indirect confrontation on the international waters. In fact, analysts warn that any misstep, it could trigger a wider escalation. Restricted airspace over Mar-a-Lago. Well, a civilian aircraft violated restricted airspace over Trump's Florida estate, triggering an immediate NORAD response with fighter jets and flares. Well, security protocols are enforced without any delay. This whole incident, it shows how seriously the US authorities treat political sensitive zones. F-16 intercept sends a clear message here. Flares fired by fighter jets warn the pilot to turn back, showing how seriously the US treats airspace breaches near high-value target. While the aircraft complied without incident, the whole situation highlights the US readiness for any rapid defense response. Mar-a-Lago violation highlights security risk here. Repeated airspace trespassing near Trump's residence has forced rapid military responses, emphasizing zero tolerance around politically sensitive areas. Well, officials warn that such breaches, they can actually have serious consequences. Right now, security at high-profile locations, they remain extremely tight. Venezuelan oil tanker heads to Texas. Well, a sanctioned Venezuelan vessel carrying 500,000 barrels of crude sails towards the US, defying Trump's blockade threat and testing Washington's resolve here. Now, this particular move, it is seen as a political challenge. Experts warn that it could further spark naval confrontation. Chevron's sensitive role here. That's right, Chevron is involved. Chevron has limited permissions to operate in Venezuela, right? Making any tanker shipment under close scrutiny and tightening and heightening geopolitical tension. While the company must navigate legal and political constraints very carefully, each shipment, it now carries strategic weight. Oil diplomacy at risk. While the tanker's voyage, that was more than a trade. It was a test of enforcement, showing Venezuela's defiance of the US sanction and naval pressure. Well, it also highlights the fine line between commerce and geopolitics. Well, global shipping routes, they are now under intense scrutiny. Trump's threat to Maduro. Trump issued blunt warnings that Maduro should step aside or face consequences, signaling a tough stance backed by implied military and economic power. Well, the rhetoric is part of a broader strategy here. Observers see it as both a warning and a challenge. H-1B visa tensions rise. US Vice President Mr. J.D. Vance, he criticizes company for using foreign workers to replace the Americans, indirectly targeting the Indian H-1B visa holder. Well, this particular statement, it sparked immediate international attention. Skilled immigrants, they now face renewed scrutiny in the US labor market. Labor and political debate collide. Vance framed skilled immigrant labor as a cheap labor, sparking backlash and highlighting growing tensions between immigration and job security policies. While companies are under a lot of pressure just to justify hiring practices, in fact, the debate, it has also triggered political polarization. America first in the boardrooms now. Well, the Trump administration emphasizes prioritizing American workers over foreign talent, signaling stricter enforcement of labor and visa rules. Well, this policy aims to curb outsourcing, but here critics argue that it can actually hurt the sector dependent on specialized foreign expertise. J.D. Vance defends personal outburst. The vice president's profanity-laced response to attacks on his wife, it reflected personal and cultural sensitivity, showing how politics has actually become intensely personal here. In fact, his reaction sparked widespread debate. Observers note that the line between family and politics is increasingly blurred. Global powers rally behind Venezuela. That's right. Russia and China, they are showing diplomatic and economic support to Venezuela, complicating the US efforts to enforce the sanctions unilaterally. Well, strategic alliances, they are reshaping the regional dynamics here. In fact, Caracas leverages this backing to resist American pressure. Missile test by Iran here. Iran launched missile drills from Tehran and other military zones, claiming defensive intent while alarming Israel and the US. Well, these exercises also demonstrate increasing precision and range here. But analysts, they warn that this could escalate the regional tension further. MacDill Air Force Base on high alert. United States Military Command in Florida sees increased aircraft activity, signaling heightened readiness amid the escalating tension with Iran. Well, the base coordinates operations across the Middle East. Observers interpret that this is a clear show of the force. Tehran's deterrence strategy here. Iran emphasizes that missile drills, they are just show of strength and deterrence, testing red lines while maintaining claims of defensive operations. Well, the goal is to signal capability without provoking the direct conflict here, yet the misinterpretation, it could lead to serious escalation. Trump eyes Greenland. Shocking? Yes. But Trump's statement about Greenland and the US envoy assignment, they have provoked Denmark, highlighting the strategic value of the Arctic in minerals and defense. Well, Greenland's resources, they are very, very important for future technology. And this whole move, it signals US ambition in the Arctic. European concern over the US action here. Allies question Washington's disregard for sovereignty, fearing precedent-setting move that prioritize the US interest over treaty commitments. Well, NATO unity is subtly under strain right now. Diplomats warn that this could erode trust among the allies. Caribbean oil route under pressure. US patrol intercepts and sanctions. They turn shipping lanes into high-risk zone, making every single tanker's journey a potential flashpoint. Well, regional governments monitor these developments very closely, but analysts warn of unintended consequences on the trade. Venezuela accuses the US of piracy. Caracas calls US seizure as piracy and illegal looting, framing blockades as a threat to international trade and dangerous precedent. Well, the accusation escalates tension further, and it could also draw attention from global maritime organizations. Global powers watching closely, be it Russia, China, Iran, they monitor the Caribbean tension with the possibility of diplomatic or economic response if the US enforcements escalate. Well, their involvement complicates the US strategic planning here. Observers fear that any miscalculation could spark a wider crisis. Bella One tanker drama here. A tanker linked to Iran and Hezbollah resists the US Coast Guard pursuit in the Caribbean, highlighting the high-stakes nature of oil and sanction enforcement. While the vessel has become a floating symbol of geopolitical tension, in fact, its journey it is closely being monitored. United States military buildup in Puerto Rico. F-35 jets and naval assets they are deployed to the Caribbean, signaling readiness and adding pressure to Venezuela's sanctioned oil operations. While this whole buildup demonstrates the US readiness here, in fact, the regional observers they are also on high alert. Risk of miscalculation at the sea. Stopping civilian tanker raises the risk of accidental escalation, as ordinary crew and vessel they become caught in the geopolitical conflict. In the meantime, experts warn that one wrong move it could actually trigger military clashes. The stakes they are now global. Mexican Navy plane crashes in Galveston. The medical rescue flight carrying a child and officer crashed in the US territory, highlighting dangers in cross-border humanitarian mission. At least 5 people are lost. This whole incident it raises urgent question about safety and protocol. Trump's Golden Fleet announcement here at Mar-a-Lago. Trump unveiled plan for super powerful battleships, claiming unprecedented firepower and signaling a vision for modern US naval dominance. Construction could take years and face scrutiny, but critics debate that this is feasibility versus spectacle. And with that, that's a wrap-up of our 30 news bulletins from around the globe. From Gaza to Israel, from Iran to the US, the world is changing and so is geopolitics. I am Driti Atri on TimesXP, giving you all the latest updates that matters the most. See you tomorrow.